Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth, and welcome to track 51 of the 4x4 Earth podcast, Land Access for All with Bill Schulz.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second part of our podcast. We're going to be continuing our discussion with Bill Schulz. He's the organiser behind the rally that we attended, and he's the force behind the Bush User Groups United, their effort to try and keep access open for all, trying to counter the attempt by VAC to get some state forests converted into national parks. Last week, we discussed some of the issues there, and we also discussed some of the concerns that we had around four-wheel drive Victoria. Now, their press release that came out, it probably wasn't the most land access for all kind of press release that you would want. It kind of left the impression that four-wheel drivers were going to be okay, and that was okay with four-wheel drive Victoria. There wasn't a lot of consideration for other users. One of the things that we've been thinking about is the fact that, it is important for land access for all, not only because of the fact that many of the land users out there, so your hunters, your fishers, your prospectors, your horse riders, they're probably four-wheel drivers as well. But the thing that I think is really important is that if we don't stand up to help other people maintain their access to the land, then potentially it's going to be a lot easier for them to end access for four-wheel drivers because there won't be that many people who want access to these areas. And on top of that, a lot of the infrastructure will have been eroded and people will go four-wheel driving a lot less. So the good news about that is we've actually scheduled in a podcast with Wayne Heavey, who is the CEO of Four Wheel Drive Victoria. And I'll get that one out to everyone as early as possible because I think it's going to be interesting to see what he's got to say. I thought it was only fair to give Four Wheel Drive Victoria. They are the peak body for four-wheel drivers. Well, this is one of my questions. Are they the peak body for four-wheel drivers in Victoria, or are they the peak body for four-wheel drive club members in Victoria? Is there a difference? And if so, how do they see that difference in panning out? So let's get back to our conversation with Bill and see what can be done to not only stop the conversion of these state forests into national parks, but to look at more track openings, because I think that's what we want to be focusing on. So surely there's been an economic... If there is the risk of people losing jobs and infrastructure closing down in rural towns, because of the fact that those economies are so... they require all of the economic input that they can get, surely there's been an economic impact statement conducted, or like a report on the economic impact of these changes?
That would have to be up the Chamber of Commerce of each town to be able to do it. I'm not quite sure, but it would be. There has to be something out there. Yep. There's another thing which is happening right now, and it may not even come through, but up in the central area of Victoria up here, the central goldfield area, they're talking right now of turning, I won't say the whole region, but it's mainly only towns and buildings. They're looking about getting the World Heritage on those listings. There's a lot of buildings up here which reflect back to the Gold Rush days, and they're trying to get those now under a World Heritage so they can create more tourists into the regions. They want to be able to also have the goldfields within the regions as an active and live goldfield, so people can go out and enjoy themselves and they can look for a bit of gold and all this stuff while they're up here and do what our forefathers did. If all this comes through, they won't be able to do it, because under the rules and regulations of a national park, you can't go along and prospect in a lot of areas. So, and then they're turning around saying, we've got to turn these national parks into there because we're getting so much influx of people from Melbourne and everywhere else coming up, and it's not doing the environment any good. But here's the World Heritage mob saying, okay, let's go along and create a World Heritage so we can create more people coming. So they're fighting against each other when they do that as well. So, it's not good.
Are there any examples of state forest that has been converted to national park in the past, like 5 or 10 years ago?
Yes.
And how has that worked out? Like, have we seen, has the bush gotten better? Is it better managed? Is it better managed from a fire risk point of view? Is it generating lots of economic activity? What has happened in these places? Where are they? What are they like now?
Okay, the Bendigo, we know that, like for instance, the Bendigo State Forest was turned into a national park, I think around about 2004, 2005. Anyway, 2 years later, it came up out of the national parks statements, right? There, they actually admitted that the tourist had dropped there overnight by 20-odd%, and I think interstate is by about 40-odd%. So they turned around and said, well, gee whiz, that didn't work. Look, there's areas that do pick up. I mean, the Grampians aren't too bad. They're because they've got something there, an attraction, and that is the Grampians. Wilson's Promontory, yeah, that's got an attraction, so that will do well. There's a cave, I can't remember the name where it is, but that's a national park, and they do well because there is an attraction there. Up in these regions, there's no attraction. All it is wood, timber, forest. That's it. There's nothing there specifically to say, hey, we've got to come up here and have a look. If that was the case, we'd be seeing people coming up even now without turning it into a national park. But it's not. And you turn that into a national park, no one will turn up because they're not turning up now. Just because you turned it into a national park doesn't mean people are going to all of a sudden flock there and say, hey, that's supposed to be a national park, let's go. No, they're not. Why don't they promote it? Hey, come up and have a look at our state forest then. We've got all this, blah, blah, blah. And you can do this and that and that and that. But they don't. Let's turn it into a national park. Why? There's no reason for it.
So the Buggew rally went quite well. You know, I was surprised. There was quite a lot of people. And it was interesting. So Ruthie came and he spoke very well about it from a four-wheel driving point of view. Why did we have Ruthie there rather than someone from a Victorian representing Victorian four-wheel drivers? Because this is effectively a state issue, isn't it? This is the state government that's making this change. Why was it that we didn't have someone from Victoria talk about these local issues?
So the main reason is we used Ruthie, and he believes in exactly what we're doing anyway, but we brought him down because he was an absolute draw card for four-wheel driving, right? There's nobody really here in Victoria who's a real draw card for four-wheel driving. If you're a four-wheel driver, right, and a real enthusiast, everyone knows Ruthie. So we brought him down as a draw card, right? And he spoke on behalf of all four-wheel drivers. It's a Victorian issue here, but New South Wales is also getting clobbered. So is Queensland. Tasmania's getting clobbered. Now they're starting on South Australia. So this issue, the VAC report, is Victorian, but it is also happening in a lot of other states where they've got equivalent to our VAC report, who are also looking at the same things up in Queensland and South Australia.
So Ruthie,
so that's the reason why we brought him in.
He definitely is a huge draw card. Probably Australia's most famous four-wheel driver. I thought the interesting thing was, though, my feeling was there were more people at the rally who were horse people than there were four-wheel drivers. Have you had much luck with four-wheel drive Victoria?
Not really. We've spoken to them. We've asked them to come on board with us because they're going to get restricted as such. But they're saying, no, we're going to keep out of it. The main reason is four-wheel drive Victoria gets subsidised by the government, right, of equivalent of around about $250,000 plus a year. They get it so they can go along and look after the tracks and keep the tracks open, the whole works. So they will not bite the hand that feeds them. That's why they didn't turn up. We tried to get them on board with us and say, hey, you know, you guys are going to clobber this as well. And they said, no, we're not. We've already got arrangements basically with the government. They know a track's getting closed down and gates, but what we've heard, they've got the keys to those gates, right, where normal people aren't. You ever talk to a lot of four-wheel drive clubs who have got a lot of members, right, and ask them about the Victorian Four-Wheel Drives Association. I can't talk too much on it because I'm not a member, but I know they only represent 1% of Victorian four-wheel drivers. So
yeah, well, I think their membership is like 6,500, something along those lines.
Something like that, and I know of a lot of them are now turning around and saying after their year's subscription's finished, they're not going to rejoin because they're fed up with it. We had to talk to them. They've recommended their members not come to the rally. They never told them they weren't allowed to, but they recommended not to come. I think we actually had a lot of their members who did turn up just the same because they said nobody's going to tell us not to go and turn up to a rally which is going to try and protect their hobbies and their sports. So that was their point of view. I know that they put out a statement prior to the rally explaining to everyone why they shouldn't go to the rally and the whole works. And we got on that site and had a look, and I don't know how many people were against what they were saying. And there was a mass of them. People who would sign in, saying, you're not telling us what to do, and you're no good, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that's their problem, not ours. Yeah.
It was interesting because they did put it up on Facebook, and it did receive quite a bit of interest.
Yeah, a lot of negative comments.
And look, they are quite correct in that there are no track closures being proposed. The thing that concerns me is that land managers can permanently or temporarily close tracks as they think is necessary. My big concern, though, is I think that we need to be thinking about access for all. And this is what Bug You was all about, isn't it? Access for all.
Yep. Yes, definitely.
I think there's a lot of...
There's no discrimination.
Well, I think, it's interesting because a lot of the user groups, like anyone who's got a horse, unless they're riding the horse from their place, they've probably got a horse float. They're probably towing that with a four-wheel drive. A lot of the prospectors, I would have thought, would be trying to get to places that haven't been well fossicked through before, so you're going to need a four-wheel drive to do that. Deer hunters, the further off the beaten path they can get, then definitely the better the hunting is going to be for them. All of these people are probably four-wheel drivers anyway, I would have thought. Yep.
Well, I mean, I use a four-wheel drive to go prospecting, right? Some of the tracks we go on, we got to use a four-wheel drive.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the fun of the probably prospecting is actually trying to find new areas. We don't bush bash as such. We always try and find a track that can lead us into it. If we can't get to the spot where we want to really go to, we'll park our vehicle and then hike in from there. But, four-wheel drive stuff, it's all to go.
So what are the things that we should be thinking about then? If we're going to be trying to... What is next for Bug You, and what is it that the four-wheel drive community can do to help access for all?
Okay. As I said, the main thing right now is we must talk to your politician. Talk to your politician, explain to him that you're not happy with the VART reports or any other report going in regards to restricting of the bush, right? Have a talk at radio. Have a talk to the local newspapers. You need to get the word out. We need to get it out completely. Now, on a part of a petition, which was done by Melina Barr, who's the Legislative Council of the state government, and she brought out a petition. The interesting part about that petition is some of the demands that we're asking for, and one of them is why was it severely recommended from the Bushfire Royal Commission and the Environment of Natural Resources inquiries into public land management practices on bushfires in Victoria have not been implemented especially those that to the lack of adequate fuel reduction and burns. That was one that we've asked them to have a look into. All right? The effects of current public land management policies on the extent and severity of the bushfires on the environment and adjoining private properties. And this is what we've also asked, the establishment of a new public land advisory body to replace the narrow-minded focus of the Victoria Environmental Assessment Council. The new body would include representatives of recreation and commercial users of public land and the Country Fire Authority. So, and also the creation of a modern management system that allows for recreational and resources use of public land while maintaining the environment safeguards. So these are some of the things we've been asking for, and that petition is now going to, or has been presented to the Legislative Council of Victoria, of the Upper House, by Melina Barth. She was one of our speakers on the rally. We've got a lot of politicians who are backing us on this one.
And that was one of the good things that I thought about the rally. So there was Michael O'Brien, the leader of the opposition. He actually spoke quite passionately about land access. Melina Barth, who I'm hoping to interview her on this, because as a rural politician, these issues are obviously more in her backyard than I would have thought within the Labor Party and the Greens Party. Obviously, the economic impact of these closures is going to be fundamental to the people within her electorate and electorates like hers, I would have thought.
I have a talk to Louise Daly. Now, she's a Liberal member for Ripon and the Shadow Treasurer Minister. Now, Ripon is the area where VAC is looking at. So she's one that you should be definitely talking to. And she's been backing us for over 4 years now.
Because I think it is one of these very interesting questions, and it is quite interesting. I'm just having a look at the board of VAC, and it includes an ex-politician who, if one was to be cynical, would probably a member of the Labor Party, one would have thought.
And he's probably one of those guys who were actually mentioned in the 2005 report that was in the Age, Enough is Enough. You might find out he was mentioned in that.
Yeah. Now,
Sorry.
Is there the ability to go from a national park to a state forest? It's a one-way thing, is it?
It is a one-way street. You can turn a state forest into a national park, but you can't reverse it. As soon as you do that, you're automatically admitting what you thought was going to be great for a national park didn't work, and they won't do it. We've already told people that. They may change the name of it and say, okay, it's not a national park, it's a conservation park now, right? But they'll still have the same rules and regulations. So, yeah, you'll find out that you can't change it, and that's the big problem. We're slowly but surely losing it all. Because if that's the case, and they change it back into a state park, or state forest from a national park, that means they're going to allow loggers and everyone else and hunting and that. They don't want that. They don't want people to be logging and all this sort of thing. So,
but what about the economic impact of that? Because, I mean, it is interesting. I think people are looking at forestry again. Once again, it's a really good way of actually locking carbon up, taking it out of the atmosphere, which is becoming an increasingly large issue for people. And one of the things that they're finding, of course, is the fact that you've got to cut these trees down, you've got to build a house out of it so that you can clear the land, so that you can grow more trees to be able to take more carbon out of the system. That would be a sustainable way of managing some of the environmental impact that we're having. And state forests, less so, because of the issues that you've got with these large bushfires, which is occurring because of the fact that we're not actually doing the fuel management. Because why is it that they're not doing the fuel management? Do you know? Or is it just the fact that lack of resources?
Lack of resources mainly, and lack of knowledge is the other. Look, how many of the, what they call coal burns, right, are done in national parks and they've gone out of control? Quite a few. There was a few of them happened at Ballarat. There was one at Wilson's Promontory. There was a big one there. The Grampians was another one. That's a good example. Right now, parts of Victoria are too scared to start doing coal burns. because they know if they start doing coal burns in these areas, which they haven't maintained properly in the first place, could get out of hand too quickly. So, yeah, so it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Let's hope the best that we don't have bushfires this year, but it's look, it's a part of the way of life. But it'd be very interesting to see what can be controlled and what can't be controlled. You know, let's have a look and say, okay, the state forest, yeah, we control that. National park we didn't, or vice versa. But it'd be very interesting to see what will happen if we do get it. And we're praying, and of course I hope that it doesn't, because, I mean, it's life could be lost, and, you know, stock could be lost, the environment, it's no good, and all this sort of thing. I mean, a lot of people turn around and say, well, Biddy, let's have a national park, right? Because we're not going to get the loggers out and all this sort of nonsense. And we'll have all those nice trees there. What happens when they burn? All the carbon that was in those trees are now going back to the atmosphere. So,
correct, exactly, yeah, and that's that's one of those things that I think is the big issue.
Yep. So, you know, I mean, our logging industry alone is one of the highest stability regulated logging industries in the world. And I heard that even Canada, who does a lot of logging, are looking at the way we're doing it now. And, yeah, we've been doing logging now for 200 years. And everyone's saying it's an old growth forest. Half of it, or 2/3 of it, are no longer old growth forest. Haven't been for donkey's years. Most of the old growth forests got lost, 120-odd years ago. Up around the Central Goldfields area, there was hardly any trees. Most of the trees were used in the mining industry way back then. And all the trees we're seeing now has all been replanted in the 1930s during the Depression. And a lot of that now is all the saplings are growing out of that as well. So, the bush has never been like this 200 years ago. Never have been.
We live in interesting times, but one big thing, thank you for all of the work that you put in for the rally, because I'm sure that there was a whole heap of work going on in the background. There was, I was surprised at the number of speakers from so many diverse, bush user types that were there, that came out and that spoke about the impact that it was having on them, their lives, their livelihoods. So good work on organising that, and hopefully the four-wheel drive community can be a little bit forward in trying to drive these changes. And
I hope so too.
Exactly. Alrighty.
Yeah,
well,
I'll give you one little thing.
Yep.
Right. Bush User Group United were formed just last year, just after the Queen's birthday weekend. Right. In 12 months, or just over now. Right, we've almost got 14,500 members on board, including politicians, within that scope of time. So what's that telling you? We've got a lot of people who want to come on board who are concerned. So at the end of the day, this thing, we're not going away. We'll keep fighting this right till the end. If the government then brings it in and says, yes, we're going to put in these national parks and all this stuff, we're going to have a court of inquiry to find out why, because everyone is saying no. So is it a democracy that we're supposed to be having here, or a dictatorship? So, I thought this country was a democracy where the majority of people have to speak. Remember, we vote politicians in to serve us. We don't vote them in for us to serve them. And, it's our right to have the bush the way we would like it. And we don't expect people from Melbourne or any other major city telling regional Victorians how they should look after their bush. We don't go down and tell them how to look after their Fitzroy Gardens and their botanical gardens. So why should they be telling us how to look after it? We're in the bush all the time. We know exactly how to look after it. We're the eyes and ears of the bush, not them. They're too busy sitting in Melbourne drinking their lattes. But we're out there working and enjoying the bush. What is it? They don't like seeing Victorian country people enjoying themselves. Anyway.
Exactly.
That's it, James. Yep.
Thank you very much. And
okay, mate. Look, I think you've got enough there to keep you going for about 10 minutes.
We have. There you have it. A lot of work's been done by Bill. He's doing a cracking effort to really get the word out there that it's our land, we want access to it, and we want to be able to do those things in a responsible and sustainable way. Because it's not just about land access for us, it's access for our kids and it's access for our grandkids. My grandkids haven't even been born yet, but I want them to be able to have the freedom to be able to go out to a place like Talbotville and to be able to do a track like Blue Rag. I think that that's really important because of the fact that all of the things that we've talked about, just the mental health benefit of going out, de-stressing, getting away from our cluttered electronic lives, just to be able to sit around a campfire with some mates, with some family, maybe have a brew or two, and just enjoy the amazing outdoors. Before we go, don't forget, check out the 4x4 Earth store. It really is important to help us to try and keep the lights on the 4x4 Earth server and to produce the podcasts. A lot of time and effort goes into keeping the website up and to do the podcasts, and the merch sales really do help us get out there. And it was great. It was really good at the rally, the Buggy Rally, to see Rob and Dee out there sporting with pride their 4x4 Earth t-shirts. That was epic. And it was interesting because we were talking and podcast listeners came up to us and had a chat to us, which was really cool as well. So that's about it. You stay safe out there, and hopefully I'll see you on the track someday. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.